All right, we're in the thick of it now. So I'm finally going to start talking to you a bit more about tab organization in ARC. And there's something you really need to know about tab organization. There are essentially 3 levels of tab organization in ARC. There is the favorites piece. There's actually a hidden space directly under the name of your space. And then there are what are called the today or temporary tabs. So let me show you what I mean. Okay, so here we can very clearly see favorites. So let's talk a bit more about favorites and how this space in your sidebar is going to function. Favorites are apps that you need to access on a daily basis, specifically for a distinct purpose. These are apps that you consider to be paramount and critical to a specific profile. So in the instance of a student profile, or in my case, my instructor profile, I would say YouTube is one of those that is critical for me, right? So what I would like is I would like YouTube, and maybe I would like specifically, my channel or whatever in YouTube to be always easily accessible to me. So when you have a tab that you currently have open and you realize this is an app or a space on the web that I use constantly as a student, you're going to want to drag this up to your favorites. And here's the cool thing. Once you've added it to favorites, it is going to appear in favorites for any space dedicated to a profile. So here in my instructor profile, I see YouTube. Maybe I also use Google Calendar. So I'm going to drag that up there. And of course, I think you know where this is going. Maybe I also use Gmail. Okay, so here I'm in Gmail. Drop that in. Okay, so I have 3 favorites. I use Gmail, I use Calendar, and I use YouTube. Now, as a student, you probably also have an LMS, right? So maybe you use Canvas by Instructure. So I'm just going to go to their very vanilla page here, but pretend like I'm actually on your sign-in. So let's say that I was logging in. Here's the login page, right, where you go. It's probably through your school portal, but because Canvas is one of those things that you need to use on a day-to-day basis, drop it up here as well. And now, when you switch between your 2 spaces in your student profile, you have quick access to Gmail, Google Calendar, YouTube, and Canvas. And you can add more than just 4. Let's say that another resource I use is Khan Academy, right? As a student, it's probably true. Well, I can add Khan Academy up here into favorites too. And then I could also add Wikipedia. Okay, so I'll drag here and drop it right there, and boom, I now have 6 favorites. Now here's the important thing to understand about favorites, because this is going to be different from some of the other tabs and uses of those tabs that I show you here in ARC. Let's say that in Wikipedia I go and look up cellular respiration, right? Okay, so when I go to Wikipedia here, this is going to just show me wherever I last was in that app. So it ties it to a distinct app, but it doesn't tie it to a specific page or starting point in that app, which means when I come up to my favorites are always going to represent the last place I navigated to in those favorites. So here, if I went to cellular respiration in YouTube, then when I go and do other things and come back to that tab here in favorites, it's still on cellular respiration, not on the starting page of YouTube. Okay, so that's really critical to understand for these. That means if you're in Canvas and you've navigated over to, say, your English course, even though you're in your biology space, this is going to currently be in the English course. And then if I come over here and open it up, it's still going to be in that same space. So favorites are really, the idea here is this is an app I'm going to use. I know I'm going to use it. I need quick access to it, but I'm not so much worried about where I am in the app, just that I have access to it. I know I'm going to need Canvas on a day-to-day basis between my 2 classes, but if it's not a big deal that I have to go back to the starting page of Canvas and backtrack to the courses I need, then great, I can access it. I think, in all honesty, email probably is one of the best examples of this, right? You don't care where you are in your email necessarily when you navigate between these two spaces. You just care that you have access to it so you can see what you have in your inbox, okay? So just something to keep in mind about spaces and favorites in those spaces, okay? So that is the favorites bar. The apps that you use on a day-to-day basis that you think, as a student, this is critical to me, I want to have them here. You know, and if I went over here to my personal, I might say, you know what, I need Gmail here as well in my favorites. So I'm going to hit Gmail, I'm going to drag this up to favorites, and then it's there, okay? So my Gmail is now in my favorites, in my personal space, and it is different than what I see over here in my student or instructor space. All right, so that's the favorites space or area of your space. So the favorites portion of a given space, again, it's going to remain consistent for all spaces within a profile, and you will see it basically be modular and distinct based on which profile you currently occupy. All right, next, let's talk about everything below the title of your space. Okay, so I'm going to open a new tab here. So I'm in Biology 1406, and let's say this week we're learning about subatomic particles. So electrons, neutrons, and protons. Protons, electrons, and neutrons. All right, so let's say that I found a pretty good article here on Wikipedia about subatomic particles. And I've decided that, man, for this particular unit on subatomic particles, this is a really, really good article, and I don't want to lose it. So you'll notice here I have this clear button. And if I click it, it literally clears all tabs underneath it. So just to show again here, I'm going to open up Google, I'm going to open up Wikipedia, and I'll open up YouTube here. This is a different instance of YouTube than up here. So notice, if I click here, cellular respiration, if I click here, YouTube front page. All right, so I'm going to clear, and that clears all tabs except the current tab that I'm in. So kept this YouTube tab, but cleared all the rest. So going back to what I was talking about before, I'm on Wikipedia, I'm looking for subatomic particles. There we go. And I've determined this is a really important Wikipedia article for the content that I'm researching. So here's the cool thing that ARC allows you to do. This article isn't something I would consider to be a favorite, right? I don't need a Wikipedia article on subatomic particles showing up here in my English course. I don't want it in favorites. Instead, what you can do when you find a tab that you do want to retain for a specific space is drag it above the clear line and drop it into the space. And now this is a pinned tab within the Biology 1406 space. Let me show you what I mean. So I'm going to open up another tab here with Google. And notice I've got a subatomic particle one up here above that clear line. So now if I go here and I do another search, let's say I look for electrons, okay? And I find, okay, this is really interesting. This is a good article. And then I'm like, well, I'm done researching, whatever, and I hit clear on accident. You know, and let me say, let's see, I have another article here, Google, or even if I'm up here, subatomic particle, and I hit clear. It clears out all the today tabs, but the subatomic particle one remains. And this really is the value and one of the most important aspects of ARC, is that you can pin the tabs that you consider to be important to you in spaces. So let's say I do want an article on electrons, okay? So I'm going to do an electron from Wikipedia, and I'm going to drag it up here. And then let's say I want one on protons, okay? So I'm going to come down here to Wikipedia, there's one on protons. And then let's say that I just want to learn more about neutrons. Okay, and so I'm going to come here to Wikipedia, look up neutron, and I'm going to drag it up here. And so now, no matter what I do down here, I've got all these dedicated pin tabs to subatomic particles. the one that's on them as a whole, one on electrons, one on protons, and one on neutrons. And here's the other cool thing about pinned tabs. Let's say that I accidentally click through this to physics. Uh-oh, I navigated away, and let's say for whatever reason I just forget myself and I click through to a bunch of these links, right? Crap. I had this article on subatomic particles, and I've clicked through, I don't remember how many tabs back it was. What am I going to do? Well, this is the other cool thing that ARC does when you pin tabs. You'll notice that on these 3 tabs, it's the Wikipedia favicon, and then just the title of the article, proton, electron, neutron. But this one, it's the title of the article, but there's a / separating it. What this / tells you in ARC is that this particular page that you're on is not the original tab that you pinned. And if you want to go back to that pin tab, you just click on this grayed area of the tab where you have the favicon. And you'll notice when I hover on it, it says back to pinned URL. And watch what happens when I click it. It takes me back to subatomic particles. So by pinning these tabs, I can very easily organize them and very quickly get back to the original content. So it allows me as a student, as an instructor, to explore the article or other aspects of related topics, but then always get back to where I need to go. So this is one of the most powerful features of ARC. Now, you might also notice here, let's say that while we're learning about atoms and all of that, let's say that I also want to start learning about bonds, right? So chemical bonds. Okay, so I want to learn about chemical bonds with Khan Academy. So here it is. I'm going to click through. This will go, okay? And it's like, okay, I've got this. So I drag this up here. Well, now one of the problems you might notice is I'm starting to get a lot of tabs. And this may be very, very familiar to you if you've been working in Google Chrome. So in Chrome, of course, if you wound up with a scenario like this, maybe, where you've got tab after tab after tab after tab after tab, and it's just tab, 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 and you're trying to figure out where the heck is all of my information, right? We're starting to kind of get a similar impact here. So let's go ahead and do something about this, okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to organize the content of our tabs further within this pinned space. So I'm going to click here on this tab, and then I'm going to hold shift and come down and click on the neutron tab. So notice that this one is highlighted, but then I've also got this shading to these other 3. So all 4 of these are currently selected. So again, to do that, I started with the tab of interest, so my subatomic particles one, I clicked on it. Then I hold shift on my keyboard and I left click on neutron, and that highlights everything between subatomic particle and neutron. And now I'm going to right click and I'm going to choose to create a new folder with these 4 items, and I'm going to title this folder subatomic particle docs. And if I close this up, you'll notice what I see here is I do see this one is still present, and that's because that's the page I'm on. If I navigate away, I'm going to see this one here. I can also click on this little line and it will hide that, so that now I've got these articles neatly organized in this, and that's separate from this particular Khan Academy article on these chemical bonds. So here I can go ahead and add this to, if I want to create a folder, I can actually go ahead and come down here, click on the plus and do a new folder, and I can call this folder chemical bonds. And then I can just drag this guy into chemical bonds. Again, because it's the open tab, I'm going to see it here, but if I want to close the tab but keep it pinned, I just click on this guy or do the shortcut of Command W. Okay, and then this comes to the next available tab. Or I can just close it and have my organized space. So you can see I can very cleanly organize spaces here. And if I wanted to further organize this, let's say this is all content that I know is going to be on exam 1. I can come here and create a new folder called exam 1. And then I can drop each of these folders into exam 1. And now, as I go through the semester in Biology 1406, I can create folders for exams and have all of my content easily organized within those folders. Okay? So I know that that is a lot, but I think you can start seeing how easy it is to work in the sidebar here using our favorites, our pin tabs, and then the Today tabs are really your exploratory tabs. So let's say I'm looking for cellular respiration, right? I want to find articles on cellular respiration. Okay, so if I want to say, okay, I really like this article here from Khan Academy, great. Okay, I want to add it to a space. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this. I'm going to open a new tab, I'm going to paste that in, and I'm going to drag this guy up here and drop it into my pin space. Then I'm going to come back here, and I'm just going to keep navigating. The other thing you can do as you search is if I find several articles that look promising on a particular topic in my Today's tabs, I can hold my Command button and click on each of those individual articles, and it will open new tabs. And then if I read an article and decide, hey, this is really valuable, then I can drag it up here and pin it. Okay? But if it's not, then I just leave it here. And you know what? Let's say that this one makes the cut, but the others don't. Great. Okay. Well, these two have been pinned, but I don't care about the rest of these, and I'm done with them. So instead of going through and having to click the close button on each of them, I just clear, and I'm done. All right? So again, the favorites bar, pin tabs within a given space, and the Today tabs underneath that, which we will eventually clear. I'm going to talk a little more in a later lecture on some of the enhanced features that ARC has that make it even easier to organize these Today tabs as you start doing more and more research. But I think you can already start to see as a student the value that this sidebar is going to offer you. And don't forget, while I'm going through all of this and navigating and keeping the sidebar open, when you're actually in the thick of going through the content on a page at any time, you can hide that sidebar and just freely browse, peruse, and read that page. It's really, really useful. All right, so we've talked through pinning and organizing tabs, and we've talked through these Today or temporary tabs and their functions. Now we're going to take it to the next level. We're going to start looking at what's called ARC Max in the next lecture. So I will see you there.